go. I'm live on Instagram. I am live on Facebook. All right. Who need me some water? All right. I'm just waiting for a couple of people to pop in. Um, there we go. So I know it takes Instagram a couple of seconds or Facebook a couple of seconds to let people know, hey, we're live, we're live, we're live, we're live, we're live. Okay, let me go in here. All right, so I will start. All right, hello. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure you all know, my name is Gina Paul. I am the author of my book, I Am Not Being Lazy, I Just Don't Understand. It is almost like a social story and teaching children how to be empathetic and loving and caring towards each other. And all that is part of the social aspects of life. Um, Whether it is them being younger or older or maybe early childhood stage or a little bit above that, which is great. Um, so today I wanted to have just a brief discussion on the importance of social emotional learning after the early ECE, which is the early childhood education, which is like the early childhood stage. Early childhood is birth through second grade, and that's about birth through 8 years old. Say birth through 8 years old, and a lot of the schools provide like the classes and all these things up until the age of about 8, where they have people, they have some they have different centers for the kids to go in, and part of it is like the social part of centers, like, oh, go over there to teach them how to communicate, how to work out their feelings, how to work out their emotions. But once they're past a certain age, it's like that's not a class. That's not a a section of the actual school. It's just if something happened, then oh, let's talk about it. Or sometimes it's not even let's talk about it. It's like, if something goes wrong, you get punished or something like that. But no one is really talking about it. So I wanted to have this conversation because you do have a lot of people who unfortunately is not, doesn't really see the importance of continuing with the social emotional support and teaching of early for early childhood. And it is really hard. I know I already see some people logging in, and I know some of you guys. Oh, hi, Miss Ware. I know some of you guys are teachers. So, I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. That's why I'm going to be looking up and down, up and down. Um, I know that some of you guys are teachers, so you know the importance of social emotional learning and teaching and supporting. And unfortunately, it's not all the schools that continuing with that past the age of 8. So I really want to find ways to really encourage schools and encourage teachers and parents, yes, parents, educators, and parents to really find ways to truly, truly, truly support the children past the early childhood stage. Because social emotional, for those of you who don't know, I got to have a little note. The social emotional is the ability for children to be able to experience, regulate, and express a range of emotions, different things that you're feeling, different things that you're thinking, different things that you're going through. You're able to express that appropriately, and that's part of teaching the how to socialize, how to deal with social issues, how to deal with social behaviors. And unfortunately, it's not every children who knows how to handle that, because they have to be taught. You have to teach them how to deal with social emotional situations. But unfortunately, schools are taking a lot of that away after they pass a certain age. And I truly believe this is when, the bullying happens. This is when this is my friend, this is your friend. It's like now it's time for us to teach them how, you know, this is our friends. Because trust me, the whole situation of this is my friend, this is your friend, you can't talk, it doesn't stop after they leave elementary school. It just evolved into something else. It could get worse, it could get better, it can get dangerous, because now they're bigger, they're more in tune with certain things in their life situations, that we have to find ways to teach them to do better socially and to deal with their emotion, their social emotional side. And one of these situations in my book that I talk about is being able to help each other. When I wrote the book in a first person way, and talk about the experiences, talk about the emotions that goes on, because I want people to really understand what children they go through, socially. Hi, Willis. Oh my goodness, all the way from the motherland. Hey. It's so good to see you on here. Oh my gosh. Um, Thank you for joining me. But the social aspect of teaching children how to deal with themselves, how to deal with their emotions, because we cannot teach them how to work with children emotionally if we don't teach them how to regulate their own emotions. Because even us as adults, we have to learn how to regulate our emotions. And children, I keep saying this before in a lot of my other videos, children do not learn from what you tell them. They learn from watching you. So if you yourself don't know how to regulate your own emotions, don't expect your children to know how to regulate their own. Because if you're gonna tell them, I want you to do this is how you're supposed to do it, but then you're not teaching them, you're not showing them what that looks like, it's going to be hard for them to really truly understand and work with that. Hey, oh hey, how are you? Hi, Gigi. So it's one of those things that people really have to truly understand. I know there's a lot of mothers on here as well, so I can see you guys jumping in. There's a lot of parents on here, and there's a lot of educators on here. I want you guys to really truly understand the importance of being that role model, socially emotional role model. Because if you're going to teach the children, whether you're an educator or a parent, if you're going to teach a child or children how to be socially emotionally appropriate, socially emotionally appropriate behavior, then you have to have it too. You can't say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to be, classy and fancy and whatever, and you ghetto as heck. That's not going to teach a child how to be classy and all of that. So therefore, it's the same thing social emotionally. If you go into, say, oh, I'm going to teach you how to be, this, but you are not what that is, then guess what? I'm not. See, what I don't want you guys to think is people asking you to be perfect. There's no. If you're going to look to be perfect, perfection doesn't exist. I want to say it again. Perfection does not exist. We could do the best that we can by learning, Googling, YouTubing, getting some books, asking a professional, whatever the case may be. We can do that and be able to get the knowledge and teach others. But we cannot, if you're looking for perfection, you're going to be disappointed each and every single time. So if you are going to, so I actually did a little research from the World Journal of Clinical Pediatrics. And one of some of the behavior and emotional disorders that they talk about that can happen with children is disruptive anxiety, depression. So yes, all the things that we as adults can suffer with, children can suffer with it too. Depression, absolutely. Anxiety, absolutely. That's where a lot of the disruptive behaviors come from, because they have so much going in here and they don't know how to appropriately express it. And this is where we come in as adults. Like, how do we teach them how to appropriately deal with their emotions? So, because we don't really know what goes on in their head, so we're looking at their behaviors, right? We're looking at their behaviors. We're looking at, we're listening to what they're saying. We're looking at their, how they interact with their peers. We're looking at, how what they're doing, how they interact with you as their parent or as their educator, their teacher. So I really, really, really want you guys to really focus on the support past the age of 8, because that's very important. Because when children are like, 3, 4, 5, we're like, oh, let's teach them to be a little more, let's teach them to be a little more, what's the word, um, let's teach them how to work with their siblings, or how to work with their friends. But then when they reach a certain age, we stop doing that. We're not, it's not, we have to continue. We have to continue even when they reach high school, because each stage of development have its own set of issues. It comes because, once they're, especially for once they started going to puberty, that's a whole nother set of problems, because the emotions are all over the place. The thought processes are all over the place. The expectations are all over the place. So this is where it's really, truly, truly important for us as educators. And of course, because I am not a parent, but I am an educator. I'm a classroom teacher and I teach younger children. But that's how I have nieces and nephews, and I have, I see my friends and their children, and I understand some of the stuff that I see them go through. I remember one parent, dealing with her child. She's like, did I even birth you? Because she was like, where is all of this coming from? Like, how do I even comprehend what it is that you're going through? Like, what is this? So it is really, really important for us to really go down in and really like push and teach and do whatever we need to do to make it right with our children. And I keep saying our children, because as a teacher, I'm like, these are my kids. For 6 hours and 50 minutes out of the day, they're my kids, so they're my children. Because as an educator, you still have to teach that as well. Social emotional is part of what you teach. Whether you're a high school teacher, whether you're an early childhood teacher, you're a middle school teacher, you are still teaching. You are still teaching. This is part, because when a child goes through something emotionally, like the death of a pet, the death of a parent, or their friend moving away, or those are emotional stuff they have to deal with. A lot of the time they don't know how to, so they act out. That's why people say, oh, the child is just acting out. Sometimes, excuse me, it's not a matter of the child is acting out, it's that they don't know how to properly, appropriately express themselves. So, and I think this is where we come in, to really teach them how to properly express themselves. And whether, and in order for us to be able to do that, we have to learn it. So because you can't really appropriately teach something that you haven't learned yourself. It's like someone who is blind trying to explain to another blind person color. You can't do that because you've never seen color. So I think it is the same way. Like, you have to really push yourself, and in order for you to educate yourself of how to properly do things. And another, because I was reading this article, and the article was really, really good. And it's just about, without the appropriate guidance, children have difficulties with expressing themselves appropriately. Now, the key word is guidance. Guidance from a parent, guidance from guidance from a parent, guidance from an educator, guidance from the babysitter, grandma, auntie, uncle, whomever the individual who are helping, this child or children, is, you have to guide them. And guidance is like, okay, you have to know where you're going if you're guiding somebody somewhere, right? So, no, again, nobody's asking for perfection. We're not asking you to be an expert in how to teach children about social emotional, the proper social emotional, behavior or expressions or whatever the case may be. But you have to at least start teaching them the basics. If your child comes to you, see the child every day, the child is just crying about something, try to figure out, okay, what's going on. Or every time you go to the store, the child throw themselves on the floor and throw a tantrum. What does that mean? What is going on? How do I help my child figure out that this is inappropriate, and this is the appropriate way of expressing that. Okay, I want this, and that's why I'm throwing a fit. Or I don't want to go to this aisle because so therefore I'm throwing a fit. We have to teach them, how do I express myself so that you have a better understanding. Now, that means as an educator or as a parent, you have to listen. Simple as that. You have to be willing to listen, because I think that's also another issue. And I could talk about this some more another time. But a lot of the time, parents are like, I want to teach, but but all they want to do is teach. You have to listen. You can't teach and don't listen. If you're teaching, then that means you have to be willing to stop and listen. Okay, so now I just taught you da 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 da. What are you feeling? What is the issue? What is going on in there? Let's figure out a way to like bring it all in and see what's going on in here, because we're not psychics. And every child is different. You could see a child, just because every time your child come to this aisle and throw themselves on the floor in the supermarket, that doesn't mean just because this other person's child come to the same aisle and throw themselves on the floor, that means it's for the same reason. Not necessarily. It might not be for the same reason. It might be for different reasons. So this is where the communication part comes in. And we do have children who are nonverbal. That's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic. That's a whole, because now there's a whole nother situation that comes with that. But at the same time, but that doesn't mean just because they're nonverbal, they're not giving you clues. They're not giving you cues. Like, you have to watch, you have to listen, because they do have different ways. They do have talking gadgets and all of that to help children who are within that situation. Because I do teach children who are on the spectrum, and most of my kids normally are nonverbal. So that's a whole nother topic and conversation. But the most important thing is to be that example. And part of being that example is to listen. That means if you're willing to teach, you have to be willing to listen. And by listening, I mean that you're sitting down, you're like, okay, now, little Tommy, little Johnny, little Amy, when we were at the store, even in the moment, like, you throw yourself on the floor. What is it that you want? What is it that you need? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling this? It is very important to pass the early childhood stage. We still got to continue doing that, because I think all of that normally stops like 8-9 years old. It's like, oh well, as if like the expectation is those children are supposed to have it all together by like right after the early childhood stage. You should know how to deal with your emotions. No, you have people. That's why we have this mental illness. There are other disorders that comes into play. Anxiety is a disorder. There's a lot of other disorders that come into play because of things that happen when we're younger, whatever the situation. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. This is not a, end all, for all, be all, and that's it. Hey Nat. So it is. I truly believe this is the situation where we constantly have to battle for our kids emotionally, because emotional issues for children becomes bigger emotional issues as adults. So therefore, the point is to help now so that it won't be a bigger issue later. And I know that when they're like 8, people pretty much like, oh, you should know better. Maybe they don't. Maybe they understand other social emotional behaviors for this, but not necessarily for that. So therefore, if there's okay, so what's going on? It could be, they're, listen, especially for young girls, now they go into puberty earlier and earlier. Now they're like 8, 9, they go into puberty. Some of them might be even younger. So therefore, there's a lot of emotions that's going through through their bodies that they don't understand, that they have no clue. They do not understand. And as adults, that we have to support them and help them emotionally to figure out what can we do to help them. And again, I know that my book is based, it's pretty much about one thing, like in terms of like language, but it could be a stepping stone to many different type of conversations in terms of social emotional past the age of early childhood. I want you all to be able to be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is when I'm going to do it. And I'm going to have that. You have to be deliberate. whether you are an educator or a parent. You have to be deliberate about helping your child social emotionally. You have to be deliberate about it, and you have to be able to seize the moment. Every opportunity is a learn is a moment of to be able to teach. Every situation you can teach in. Maybe the situation is so volatile that you might not be able to teach in the moment, but you can teach later on so that that moment won't happen again. Sometimes it's not everything that requires for the child to get punished. It's not everything that requires for the child to get in trouble. Sometimes it is important um, that we take that as a teachable moment. Every moment could be a teachable moment. Take that as a teachable moment. You know, when they're in middle school, this is when like they really start to notice, boys start to notice girls and girls start to notice boys, and that's not a whole nother set of emotional baggage just came through, and now you have to teach them a different set of social emotional behavior, social emotional expressions, and all of that. And that's why it is so important to teach your children not only about social emotional when they're younger, but social emotional when they're older, because different stages in life provide different need. And when they get to high school, that's a whole other ballgame, because this is when sex become an issue. This, and of course, sex and emotions go like this. Then again, that is another social aspect of that you have to bring into play. So that's why I think it's so important. I don't Because when you have social studies, I don't think that's enough, because they're not. I don't think that they're fully really giving the kids all the things that they need. Unless something come up. Okay, let's go sit down and talk about it. But They're not deliberate about adding a class specifically for that. Like, we're going to talk about appropriate social emotional emotions. About expressions, emotions, and all of that comes into play. We have to be willing to do better. And again, not perfect. We're not looking for perfection. As educators, we make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I remember I look back on some of the stuff I've done in my classroom. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking when I said this. I don't know what I was thinking when I did that. I don't know what I was thinking. And I'm sure many of you who are watching as parents or educators yourself, you probably, you've done that. You're like, what was I thinking? Or what was, oh, like sometimes you got to go back and apologize to your kids. I've apologized to my students. I've done that more times than I care to admit. I'm like, I am so sorry. I didn't realize, I'm so sorry. I don't see, oh, I'm so, because parents, we have to learn to apologize to our kids, because sometimes we're wrong. We're wrong. Sometimes we are wrong. And we have to be willing to say, I am sorry. That is part of the teaching. Saying I am sorry is part of the teaching. And I know that we do not like to be wrong. Who does? But that doesn't mean that we cannot humble ourselves. Because again, that's part of the teaching. That's part of the social emotional teaching. So I really wanted to come in here and talk about the importance of really teaching that past the early childhood stage, past the age of 8, where we're constantly, even think about, if us as adults, think about fam ourselves, or even family members who are adults, and how they're still dealing with social emotional issues. So think about if you can help your child or your children or your students to be able to deal with some of these things now, how to appropriately deal with them. Because you can deal with something, you can deal with it, but that doesn't mean it's the appropriate way. So so teaching them the appropriate way of doing something, again, not perfection. And this is when the part where when you make a mistake, you're like, you know what, son, daughter, student, I'm sorry. You know, I made that mistake, and you know what, it should not have happened. And yada yada. So that when they make a mistake, they can come to you and say, I'm sorry. That's a hell. To say I'm sorry is healthy, y'all. It's healthy. It's very healthy to say I'm sorry, because that's part of teaching our children that things happen, but we can still, like, hey, mistakes happen. We're not perfect. Mommy's not perfect. Daddy's not perfect. As a teacher, I'm not perfect. None of us know it all. If you do, you must be Jesus, because none of us know it all, and we're all still learning. You know, even those people who are expert in their field still have lots to learn, because they're not perfect. They still have lots to learn. You know, but and this is, again, this is really really important to teach your children that you're not striving for perfection. You're striving to do better, to be better, to understand better, to be able to express yourselves better, to and as part of social emotional teaching and support is also helping them to see better. You know, because sometimes what you see might not necessarily means it's what's going on in here. So this is, another part that's very important to teach our kids. Okay, so your friend, Johnny, say this. Okay, why? Find out why. Like, why did Johnny say this? Or why did, Marie say that? Whatever the situation may be, we have to be willing to help our children to be able to express themselves. Like when they're older, like, okay, you're no longer a baby, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you're no longer a baby. Now let's talk about, now let's see how, giving them better words to express themselves, which means you yourself have to learn them words. Mm-hmm. You have to learn those words to be able to help them to understand, to express themselves better. And I want, I want each and every one of you to really truly understand that although we're adults, we're still learning ourselves. But that's not an excuse not to teach our kids what's the proper way of doing things. It's not like, oh, I'm still learning, so therefore I can't know. Then you teach them what you know. Go to, let me tell you, YouTube, Google, try those. Get some books, and don't sleep on therapy, y'all. Don't sleep on therapy. You find a good therapist to be able to sit down and have those conversations to really help you, learn how to sift through emotional stuff so that in turn you can help somebody else. Why not? Why not? This is the kind of things that we all have to learn to do so that we can learn to do better, so that we can teach our children to be better members of society. Now, does that mean after you've done all of this, they're going to be like the best of the best of the best? No. Why? Because you just don't know. Different children are different. A lot of children, they're different, But I still want each and every one of you to really understand, even though they're different, that doesn't mean that you can't help. I want each and every one of you to really fight for that. Fight for your children's social emotional well-being. Sometimes, especially when they're the middle school age, where they don't really understand a lot of the emotions when they're going through puberty, they don't really understand a lot of the emotional aspect that's going on. Let me tell you, it is not easy. Because I remember those years. I have actually a couple of people in here. Natalie's in here. G's in here. We did our elementary school, no, junior high school together. So we know what we went through. And this is not, so if you think we went through and how difficult it was for us, how challenging it was for us, it's no different for our kids now. As a fact, I think it's even worse because now all this online stuff is available to them, and it might not be giving them the right information. So therefore, we have to be able to teach them. We have to be able to do better. How to express them. They can come to you when, your daughter can come to you when she has a period for the first time. Or she's like, sometimes I feel this, when that happened, how are you feeling? So you will know how to help them deal with those emotions, but it's not, yes, now it's very challenging. And of course I know that there will be the difference between a girl and a boy within that time frame, but it's still there. You know what I mean? It is still there, and we have to be able to do what we feel like it's that we need to do with, with these kids, because social emotional behavior is very the proper learning the proper social emotional behavior is a very important skill set for our kids as they get older, and they build on that. They build on that every day. They're building on that. But again, we have to teach them how to what's appropriate. We have to teach them how to express themselves appropriately. So because a lot of kids, think about us as adults, we go into a certain situation and we get anxiety. We get anxiety. We don't know how. We like, oh my God, we're freaking out. And a lot of the times, a lot of our kids don't know, even as adults, we don't know how to properly express that anxiety. And now we have to learn, we have to learn so we can teach our kids how to, how to express that anxiety. Okay, this is what I'm feeling. Because sometimes, I don't know if you guys been through this, I know I've gone through this, where sometimes you feel like, oh my God, and then you sit down with someone and that person's like, okay, let's stop for a minute. Tell me what it is that you're feeling. And you start, putting all this, sometimes you have a hard time putting the name to the emotions, and you try to figure, but then that person sits with you and going over it with you and molding it with you. And all of a sudden, it's like all that anxiety is just like pulling away from you, because now you have someone who's teaching you like, okay, this is, this is this and this is that. This is the this is what this feeling might be. This is what this might be. Or maybe this is the best way to do this. Maybe this is the best way to do that. Let me tell you, it is important, because a lot of the time right now, a lot of the schools, once they reach 8, it's like that kind of the social emotional teaching part kind of take a back burner. It can't do that. We can't do that as educators. We can't. As parents or guardians or aunties or uncles, we can't. Because I might see, like I said, I don't have children, but my nieces and nephews, my students, if I see something, we're going to have that conversation. We're going to have that conversation. Let's sit down. Let's have that conversation. If I'm not able to help you because I do not understand what it is that, because again, I'm not an expert in this, but if I am able to be like, you know what, I'm not too sure about this, I know someone who might be able to help. Or I will try to find you someone who might be able to help, who is better equipped to help you with that social aspects of what it is that you're dealing with. But we have to be willing to do our part to help past the early childhood. Because one of the things that drives me crazy, with parents, like, you should know better. You should know better. Maybe they don't. Have you thought about that? Maybe they simply don't. A lot of the times, think about us when we were children and how many times our parents tell us the same thing over and over and over and over again. And we keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And then finally the parents like, oh my gosh. Yup, that's exactly what's happening. That's us all over again. Our children all over again. So think about what you were thinking about then, what you were dealing with then, and how can you help within that moment. So I know today is Valentine's Day, so many of you want to go, next what's it called, Netflix and chill, and go, hang out with your boo and whatnot, or do some Google Zoom calls and all of that. So I'm not gonna keep you very long, but I just want to come and kind of give this little information, give you a tidbit of what we can do for our kids, as educators and as parents, and what we can do for social emotional support for our kids. And if you guys want more of this, let me know. Comment, at the comment, in the comment section, and I will try to do some more research. I could bring a couple of people in, and we could talk some more. But yeah, so I wanted to do that episode. Therefore, you guys go ahead, enjoy your Valentine's Day, enjoy your love bugs, enjoy your children, because they are also your Valentines. So I won't keep you guys very long. So thank you for joining me. And if you're watching this later on, definitely, like I said, comment if you guys want to hear some more, if you guys want to do some more discussion on that. And then we will take it from there. Okay. Again, thank you guys so much for logging in, and definitely for your comments. I appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys next Sunday at 2. Bye.